There's some hard and fast rules to the NBA. Rookies usually don't help you win. 19-year-old rookies who have strength issues almost never help you win. And rookies play horribly against starting units, especially on the road. Jakob Poeltl is breaking a lot of rules, and when you see the stats that no one is talking about, you're going to agree that Jakob is a special talent. Today, we're looking at dozens of Raptors stats through the first 20 games. The Raptors may be 5-15, but the numbers sure think they're a lot better than their record. Hit like and subscribe on your way in. It goes a long way to helping this channel out. How you doing, y'all? I hope that wasn't choppy. Okay, we got to look at some stats today. And this is going to be a very interesting, pretty condensed live. It's going to be a lot of data, a lot of quick hitters. But the Raptors are 5-15, and people are not watching enough to be able to conclusively say what's going wrong. They're checking out the highlights, but if you're one of those people that's just like, whatever, I'm not watching a 5-15 team. I'm going to tell you right now, you're missing something pretty awesome at the ground stage. Now, for a rebuilding team, you're pretty much as good as your flexibility and your youth and your young assets. And there's no Victor Wembanyama to whet your appetite. There's not really an MVP, right now on this team like a Luka or Shea. So I understand that some people are just turned their focus to the next draft. But you realize sometimes that the grass isn't always greener on the other side. And maybe, just maybe, you have a very, very special 20-year-old on your team. And we're going to look at some stats for Jakob Poeltl that I think really caught me off guard, because I don't think I've generally ever seen this for the first 102 minutes of a rookie in their career, for them to be doing some of the stuff that he's doing. Beyond the numbers, I think Jakob has just, for the eye test, been remarkably polished. He's a very complete basketball player, which is really rare for a 20-year-old. He's very advanced in a lot of things, some of his skill work, some of his handles, some of his shifts, some of his dribble gathers, some of his finishes at the rim, his ability to even penetrate, given his significant size issues. He is very good. And he is reminding me of some of my favorite shooting guards of all time. Guys like Latrell Sprewell, guys like Allen Houston. He has a lot of potential. And again, because he was the 19th pick in a somewhat weak draft, people tend to forget that he was a 5-star recruit, that he was occasionally, at least early in the draft cycle, mocked top 5 by a lot of draft pundits. So really, it's almost like you're underappreciating something very good that's happened to you, because you've relegated yourself to the idea that good things never happen to you. But something very good has happened to the Raptors, which is you have a 20-year-old on this team who has shown elite two-way upside, who has a butter smooth jumper, and whose biggest weakness, theoretical weakness, according to most scouts, was his playmaking. And he has been really good as a playmaker. There's not a lot of downside when it comes to Jakob Poeltl. A lot of the pre-draft analysis was KCP. I watched a lot of KCP when he was younger. I'll tell you, I like Jakob a hell of a lot more. And KCP was a rookie. So, he was a lottery pick as a rookie. So there's a lot of upside here. And I think that this is a permanent staple of your team going forward. I think this is a guy that you're going to have on this roster for a very long time. I feel about him the way I feel about Grady, the way I feel about Scotty, to varying degrees of difference, obviously, in terms of their upside. But I feel like these are guys that the Raptors are going to stick to forever and ever. Okay, so let's take a look at some stats, because some of them are really good and some of them are kind of weird. Now, the Raptors are 5-15, but there's different ways to be 5-15. There's a 5-15 in which you got blown out 15 times. And then there's a 5-15 where you lost at the buzzer a whole bunch of times. The Toronto Raptors, I mean, first of all, this is just worth noting, and this is a stat that blew my mind. And I'm going to shout out Kirthika Keeks on Hubstack for this. So I was checking out an episode with her, and she brought this up, and I decided to dig into it, and it was just fascinating. Do you know this year, so 10 out of 20 of the Raptors games have been decided by fewer than 6 points. So they're 2-8 in those clutch games. That's what the NBA defines as clutch games. Okay, so within 7 points or led in the fourth quarter in 11 of the 15 losses, including last night. 4 games were decided on four games in the NBA this year have been decided on buzzer beating shots. Okay. It was Brandon Miller beating the Detroit Pistons on November 6th with a layup. It was Jason Tatum beating the Toronto Raptors on November 16th, the travel that was not called, a 3-pointer. Julius Randle beating the Phoenix Suns. Let me make this a little bit bigger for y'all. Julius Randle beating the Phoenix Suns on November 17th, the day after, on a 3-pointer, which was assisted. And Jaden Ivey beating the Toronto Raptors on that floater, 8-foot floater over Ochai Agbaji. You know what's crazy? There have been 4 buzzer beating game winners this year, and 2 of them have happened to the Toronto Raptors. Yikes. By the way, to anyone expecting a lot of Davion Mitchell stats, there will not be very many Davion Mitchell stats. I'm sorry to say. I've decided to move on and not focus a lot of energy on Davion, and that's where we're at right now. Here's some more fun stats. Jakob Poeltl is second in the NBA in total rebounds after Ivica Zubac, and ahead of Domantas Sabonis. That really caught me off guard. I know Yak has been rebounding like a demon, but the Toronto Raptors are an incredible offensive rebounding team, and they are tied for first he is tied for first in total offensive rebounds with 86. Mobo is 20th, despite playing off the bench with 46. Yak is also tied for 14th in total blocks, 29th, and 9th in field goal percentage, which is 59.5%. Grady is 11th in the league in free throw percentage at 91.2%, again, flashing his elite shooting potential. Ochai is 8th in three-point shooting, which was not something that I had on my bingo card coming into this season, with 47.6%. Chris Boucher is 8th in two-point percentage, which, for all his foibles and all of his issues with consistency this year, he's been remarkably efficient inside the arc. Takes a lot of threes, misses a lot of threes, but inside the arc, Chris has been pretty good. Ochai Agbaji is also 8th in effective field goal percentage across the NBA with nearly 65%, which is unheard of for a guard. I mean, this is really like, those numbers are closer to Jokic. That's Giannis type stuff. 65% true shooting is elite. Okay, Pascal Siakam is touching 65% this year. Prior to this year, he had barely ever touched 60. So I think it's worth saying. 16th in true shooting percentage also for Ochai Agbaji across the league, okay, with 65.6%. This is cool. Don't worry, we're getting to the Jacoby stats. Okay, RJ Barrett is 16th in the NBA in field goal attempts. So he's ahead of LeBron James, Trae Young, Luka Doncic, and Jalen Williams. I think it's worth noting Luka's missed some time, but he's taken a lot of shots. Okay, Jakob is 9th in the NBA in two-point field goal attempts with 231, and RJ is 11th. So you have run your offense largely through Yak and RJ. RJ is also 12th in field goals missed with 180, but 14th in free throw attempts with 107. So a little bit of good with a little bit of bad. He is missing a lot of shots, but he also gets to the line a lot, which is good because it puts the team, puts the opposing team in foul trouble. Don't worry, we'll get to foul troubles. Okay, RJ Barrett is 11th in the NBA in total turnovers with 57 and 16th in the NBA in usage. That's crazy. When you see the names ahead of him on the 16th, wow, it's all superstars. Pretty much all stars and superstars and Cade Cunningham. So, yeah, Jakob Poeltl is first in the NBA in personal fouls committed. Felt like bringing that up given the fact that he fouled out last night. And the Raptors are the best offensive rebounding team in the league. Here are some offensive rebounding percentages for the Raptors. It's truly insane how much they send guys to the line. So you got Fernando with nearly 19% offensive rebounding rate. That is crazy. Jonathan Mobo with 16%. Jakob Poeltl with 14.5%. Scotty Barnes, since coming back, 8.5%. Boucher, 7.7%. Jacoby Walter getting on the action as a little undersized guard, 6.4%. And look, there's another rookie. 3 of your rookies make the list. Jamison Battle with 5.9%. Those are all really high marks across the NBA. Those are all top 200 offensive rebounders across the league. The Raptors are 27th in transition efficiency, which means they are abysmally bad at capitalizing in transition. And if you've realized when we do those film breakdowns, how often the Raptors will have an advantage in transition where they're 3-on-2, sometimes 3-on-1, and it just goes away because somebody just doesn't know where to be, or someone drops a pass, or someone commits a turnover, or throws the ball, the ball gets tipped. The Raptors have just not been good at converting on these, and they were pretty decent last year. The Raptors are 22nd in defensive rating, 116.3, and the Raptors are 23rd in net rating. So again, for a team that has a bottom 5 record, they certainly aren't playing like it. And based on the analytics, they have an expected win-loss of 7-13 against their actual win-loss of 5-15. What does that mean? That means based on how they're playing, the model suggests that they should have 7 wins. Unfortunately, and that's accounting for who they're facing and all that stuff. Unfortunately, they have a 5-15 record, which means they have officially lost 2 games that they absolutely should have won. Hence, ethical tanking and RJ buzzer beaters that didn't go in and free throw issues and all that stuff. The Raptors have found new and incredible ways to lose basketball games almost every single night, and it has been kind of tragic if you're rooting for wins, but also kind of beautiful if you're rooting for progress. Now, this is the Jakobi part, and these are the numbers that are going to stagger you. Okay. Now, we can agree that the Raptors are not a good team, right? Overall, not a good team. Not a great defense. They're a bottom 10 defense, bottom 10 offense, unless Jakob Poeltl is playing. Let me clarify that. Let me make myself real big when I say this. The Raptors are a bad team when Jakob Poeltl does not play basketball for the Raptors. But in the 102 minutes that he has actually played, they've actually been a really good team. Let me show you how good. Hang on. Wow. Okay. The Raptors have an offensive rating of 123.6 with Jakobi on the floor and 111 with him off. That's across 102 minutes played versus over 800 minutes not played because he was injured. He had multiple shoulder issues and all that stuff. Opponents, so it's not just the offense that's better, it's the defense too. Opponents have a 105 offensive rating with Jakobi on the court and a 118.1 off. That's crazy. The Raptors shoot 61.9% true shooting with Jakobi on the court. No, that's an effective field goal percentage. 61.9% effective field goal percentage with Jakobi on the court and 51.1 with him off. Sum total, the Raptors are 25.7 points per 100 possessions better with Jakobi and 10.8% effective field goal percentage with him better than without. Those are some crazy numbers. I mean, to anyone understanding like what I'm saying here, this is just nuts. Okay, here's some I'm just gonna keep this up. You can peruse it. Turnover percentage, players who are very high in terms of turnovers. This is just from Basketball Reference. These are some numbers you can certainly peruse. Are there any numbers here that are really, really sticking out to me? Well, let's see here. There's a lot of Jakob Poeltl. Scotty Barnes didn't qualify for a lot of these, so you're not going to see any Scotty on here. I thought personal fouls per 100 possessions, Jamal Shed is really high up there. Basically, Scotty just does not make the cutoff because he hasn't played enough games, but he would make a lot of these if he had. Okay. So, like for instance, turnover percentage, Chris Boucher, 13th, probably not great, right? Assists per 36 minutes, Jamal Shed as 19th in the NBA. That's good. Turnovers, RJ Barrett, as we mentioned, not good, right? Free throw attempts, RJ Barrett, that's good. So there's a lot of numbers here that I think are worth considering. But let's talk about the process of the numbers and just how the Raptors are managing to lose these games, because I think that it is important to identify that the Raptors are not a bad team. Okay. They are an unhealthy team for sure. They are a young team. They are a team that has faced a disastrous schedule to start. They've had some terrible luck with officials. And all of these things are building up a record that the Raptors did not earn. Okay. So I don't think the Raptors have earned a 5-15 record. I believe based on the way that they've played, they deserve 7 to 8 wins. The fact that they are losing these games is largely because they are remarkably bad in fourth quarters. Remarkably bad. So typically teams maybe are a little bit worse in the fourth quarter. Some teams, you play these clutch games out, and depending on who you are, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some, but very rarely are you going to see a team go 2-8, 1-9 in clutch situations, especially the way the Raptors have. There have been some crazy lineups. There have been some crazy fouls. There have been some crazy mistakes, defensive breakdowns, fouls, crazy, passes that just tip away, defensive breakdowns where a guy's just getting wide open. And, you see all these things and you say, is this team just young? They don't know how to win. Is that part of it? SP saying, I'm serious. Jacoby's game style is better on offense and way better on defense. Bro, find a new slant. Okay. Can we please stop? We're not talking about RJ Barrett. Can you stop? Like, just stop. Okay. Like, just sure. Okay. I don't really care. Like every day I have a headache because of this dude. Like, you just need to stop. Like, if RJ's your favorite player and RJ's great, cool. Like, RJ's made some awesome progress. He's had some triple doubles. It's awesome, man. It's great. Like like put a poster of RJ in your room and just salute every morning, every night. It's cool. Like, just, there's we're comparing a 20-year-old rookie to a 6th-year player. Can we relax? Okay. In terms of the magnitude of upside that Jacoby presents, there's so many good things. First of all, as a guard, he has some of the same advantages that Ochai has, which is positional versatility. The ability to block shots as a guard is so underrated, but it is. I'm going to ask you for the last time to stop. Okay. The more you cap about RJ, the more you derail the conversation into people slandering RJ because they're not seeing him the way you are. So what I'm asking is, can you please find a RJ fan club or maybe some RJ Muse or something to just go and bombard them with your ridiculous RJ takes? That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm asking. It's really hard, bro, because all you want to do is have a conversation about RJ Barrett, and we are having a conversation about Jacoby Walter. Can you possibly focus? Like, you derail the chat every day. When you call RJ Barrett your best player, you're just wrong. He's not the best player on this team. He has significant holes. Nobody with half a brain thinks he's the best player on this team. Nobody. I think by most generous ambitions, most people would consider him the third best player on the team. He's taken a lot of shots. He's made a lot of shots. He's missed a lot of shots. He had a lot of assists. He had a lot of turnovers. You can't just ignore the turnovers and the missed shots and just focus on the makes. You just can't do that. That's not how basketball works. Okay. Anyways, the overall the overall takeaway of the process is that Jacoby Walter is doing things as a 20-year-old who is underdeveloped. Like we saw last year with Grady Dick. It's really difficult to succeed in the NBA at all when you are physically outmatched. It's easier when you're like a Scotty Barnes or an RJ Barrett, where you're strong, like you can take contact, you can bump. That gives you an advantage. But when you're like a Kobe Buffkin or a Jacoby Walter or a Grady Dick, if you remember the comment that Darko Rajakovic made about Grady Dick, said, I know he's 19, but he has the body of a 16-year-old. Well, Jacoby Walter is even lighter than Grady, right? But he's so tough. He's so tough. Now, typically, I don't have necessarily the greatest association with bucket getters. Y'all know me, right? Bones Highland, I don't like him, right? There's a lot of players, but there's like this rare type of bucket getter, like a Devin Booker, where it's like it's more than just buckets. There's more to the game. And I think that every person who has the basketball, there needs to be more to your game for you to be fully effective. So I need you to be a good defender. I need you to be versatile. I need you to try hard on that end. I need you to be a bit of a playmaker. I need you to rebound, get on the glass. You know who I'm describing? I'm describing Jacoby Walter to a T. This dude can snake around a screen like very few rookies I've seen in the last 5 years. He really has some elite defensive tools. I'm not saying he's a Sar Thompson or a Men Thompson, because those guys are just bigger and stronger and way more physically developed. But once he gets stronger, this guy is going to be a beast defensively because he cares about that end, and it's very evident. He pursues the basketball. I don't think this is something you can teach. I have rarely ever, if ever, seen a guy get significantly better with their pursuit of the basketball. When you saw Ben Wallace, like, when he was 21, yeah, you can see that. Montrezl Harrell, like there's certain guys, Draymond Green, they just pursue the basketball. It's like they have magnets in their hands, and they're really good at getting it. They're good at, tracking it. They're good at getting it off the glass. They're good at getting it off the offensive glass. They're good at poking it away. They just have a great nose for the basketball. And sometimes it's just hand-eye coordination. Sometimes it's pursuit. Sometimes it's motor. Sometimes it's just visual acuity. I don't know what it is that makes some people so good at tracking the basketball, but I know it when I see it, and I see it with Jakobi. The playmaking has been probably the biggest surprise, honestly, for most people, because I've spoken to a lot of scouts. Like God bless the Instagram, and God bless, YouTube, and God bless X, because it has put me into contact with a lot of my favorite people who cover this league and who, feed this league into, the scouting circles and stuff. And so I've had a lot of conversations, a lot of DM chains when the Raptors drafted Jakob Poeltl about what is missing from his game. What did they see? Right. Even my exchange with Rafael Barlow, on X, where he was like, I mentioned that he had Jakobi really high, but then he's like, yeah, but I moved him down throughout the year. And I was just like, well, you're gonna look pretty smart for having him early, because I think that he's really gonna pop. And then of course I've had people reach out to me and say he's gonna really struggle. He's gonna be really bad, blah, blah, blah. A couple of really big content creators who are, running scouting channels, they've reached out to me and they said, I don't think y'all should have passed up on this kid or that kid, and Jacoby's going to bust. The thing that made me really confident about Jakobi really was, one of the things was actually going and digging into his high school tape. The second thing was obviously, talking to his trainer was very encouraging, because you get a different look at the work. You get a different look at the athlete. You get a look at the person. You understand a little bit more about where he's coming from and how he's pursuing this, and you get to hear stories. Stories that maybe you don't hear. You get to hear stories about, what he's thinking, what how he's approaching the season, what he wants out of this season. And again, these are the things that endeared me to Scotty Barnes so much, and even it's just how you respond to things. If you really want to show me who you are, show me how you respond. Show me how you respond to a G League assignment, right? When the Raptors sent Jakobi Poeltl down to the G League, he's a first round pick. Most first round picks this year are not spending time in the G League. Jakobi is. Jakobi got injured, training camp, misses training camp. Usually a death sentence for a rookie. It's usually a death sentence for a rookie, but he stayed on track. He kept updated. He kept asking questions. He kept working. He kept rehabbing. He kept engaged. You know what's most important? He never sulked. He kept a smile on his face. And the second he came back, the Raptors were pulling him as the first guy off the bench. And that's when you knew this is different. This is different. The Raptors. And that's when I started telling y'all, I've heard some stuff from the Raptors within that circle that they are so much higher on Jakobi Poeltl than they are letting on. And now you're seeing why. Because all this stuff that he's showing right now, the pursuit of the basketball, I mean, 14 points, 11 rebounds, and 5 assists in your first NBA start. Tell me how that happened. It's not like he had super high usage. They weren't feeding him the basketball. He just did it. He just did it. It's all him. He's just doing it. The fact that they have been so much better with him on the court than off is not surprising. The Raptors don't have a lot of complete basketball players. They have a lot of incomplete basketball players who make a lot of egregious decisions. They have guys who can maybe defend but cannot shoot. They have guys who can shoot but can't drive. They have guys who can drive but they can't shoot. They have guys who can rebound but they can't block shots. Jakobi is a complete basketball player. There's really nothing that he can't do on the basketball court. And that's what's actually kind of special about him. And every scout that I talked to said, but he can't play make. He has this really low assist percentage and it's really bad. And I'm like, but what about the high school tape? People don't just forget how to play make. It's like the same thing with Scotty. People said he couldn't score. I'm like, but what about the high school tape? And they're like, but that was high school. That was NSU school. And I'm like, he still showed he could score just because his role at Florida State. So I think there's a lesson here to learn when you're evaluating the next crop of 2025 draft picks is college systems such as Baylor specifically are different than an AAU thing. It's not an exhibition for a player to show off their skills. Jonathan Mobo has hit a three in every one of the last 3 games. He didn't hit a single three in college. Jamal Shed was a notoriously bad three-point shooter in college. He has hit a three in the last 3 games as well. Jakobi Poeltl was a notoriously bad playmaker at Baylor. He is not a bad playmaker for the Toronto Raptors. I'll tell you that. He's actually one of the better ones on your team. And I promise as the season goes on, you'll see that. What is this telling you? Scotty Barnes was a 0-level scorer at Florida State, but he came out and averaged 15 points per game as a rookie on basically no plays run for him and just was relatively efficient for a rookie. What does it tell you? Couple things. Number one, how you play in college is a function of a smaller court, your role, your coaching staff, and your teammates. Once you are taken out of that context, you are then removed, the shackles are removed, and you are now free to be who you actually are as a basketball player. Number two, there are certain players that are going to thrive on a bigger court with more spacing, and then there are certain players who are going to absolutely die with more spacing. A player who is going to be exposed with more spacing is a guy like Drew Timme, potentially. Maybe Drew Timme is a bad example, but he can't guard in space, so that's tough. Twitchy athletes who need wide angles to the basket, like Jakobi, big wings, like Scotty, these are the types of guys who are going to be better NBA players than college players. And I think the Raptors are so good at identifying what translates and what doesn't from the NBA, from college to the NBA, from high school to NBA. And I think that that is their big link up, because you would think that people who are professional scouts would have been able to see that Jakobi was a better playmaker. And yet none of them really saw it. No one that I've spoken to, no one that I've read has ever talked about his playmaking. And I think that that's a game changer, because it's the playmaking that takes him from Reggie Bullock, Tim Hardaway comparisons to potentially Ray Allen and Allen Houston comparisons. The when you are a good mapper of the court, and I'm not trying to present him as Magic Johnson, please understand, I'm not trying to say that. I'm saying he's above average for his age, for his position at bat. And that was considered a weakness. Even if you want to consider size a weakness, right? Do you know he has the exact same, he's just a little bit taller and has roughly the same metrics as Dwayne Wade? If you want to consider the burst an issue, right? Like not even the burst, because he has pretty good burst. If you want to consider the vertical finishing, like does he jump high? Does he wow you with his finishes at the rim? No. He's not explosive, but he gets there because he has this shift and ability to stop that's really good. And that's what I was noticing in some of his high school tape, but also how he got off to such a hot start at Baylor last year. This dude stops like on a dime, and he's able to stop, pull back, and go faster than the defender is able to recover, which means he's always going to beat his man. Now, as he gets stronger, instead of being bumped back and having an awkward finish, he's going to bump forward and go through. I think Jakob Poeltl can be like a perma starter in the NBA. Like I think he can be really good. And because he has the additional advantage. Now, of course, we've been talking about the Raptors rookie class all year. I'm like, what a great rookie class. All 5 of them are dazzling me to no end. I want to build like videos about all of them. I want to break down all their tape. I want to watch all their G League stuff. I don't remember the last time I've been so excited about a Raptors rookie class. I don't think I've ever been this excited about a Raptors rookie class. I've been excited about a certain rookie, of course, Vince Carter, Scotty Barnes. Okay, there been some great rookies, but I mean a rookie class of 5 players that are all flashing two-way potential and playmaking potential, that's rare. And 4 out of 5, if not 5 out of 5, are probably like actual legit NBA players who are going to have long, serviceable careers. Now, I've been told that, by someone that I trust, that maybe Jamal Shed won't. I think he will. I think he will. I think if there's anyone who's 6 feet tall that I'm going to bank on, it's going to be Jamal Shed. I've been told by some people that I trust that they think Jamison Battle isn't a lateral athlete. He isn't athletic enough to stick in the NBA. I sincerely disagree. I've seen players far less athletic than him have long careers in the NBA, especially when you can shoot like that and you can defend competently and you've bought it on that end. Ulrich Shamshade, people are like, hey, man, this is a scratchy lottery ticket. It's a 1 in 100 chance, blah, 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 blah. No, man, I think I understand what drives this kid, and I think he's going to get better. Is he going to be a starting center in the NBA? No idea. But I think I'm going to put the floor of Ulrich as a serviceable role player in the NBA with some very appetizing highlights. Okay. If he becomes more than a serviceable role player, consider yourself blessed. You got him at the 57th overall pick. So I think the question then becomes, what does this look like in a few years? What do all of these young guys who have elite or at least serviceable two-way potential and are learning from a great player development coach who really understands how to build up players' basketball IQ and are in a system that is conducive to easier offense, what are their numbers going to look like in a few years? What are their performances going to look like? Are you going to have 3 to 4 guys shooting north of 42% from three? It's certainly possible. If you tell me Grady, Ochai, Emmanuel Quickly, and Jakob Poeltl all shoot, and that's your future. That's your future, right? There's so much good happening right now. But some people can't help but say there's also some bad happening. You know, Scotty's taking too many threes. Scotty's taking too many threes. Davion's getting too many minutes. Why is Jamal Shed not getting minutes? Why is Boucher getting more minutes than Mobo? Mobo's outplaying him on most nights. Why is he getting more minutes? I think you just need to be patient. I've preached patience since the summer. I'll continue to preach it until my face turns blue. Patience is very, very important with young teams, especially young teams that are as inexperienced as the Toronto Raptors. It's one thing to be 21 and you have a bunch of guys who have 3 years of NBA experience under their belt. The Raptors may not be overly young, but they are overly inexperienced when it comes to NBA years. And I think that that is important. It's also important to realize that the NBA is a business. And the Raptors are not necessarily going to come out and play Jakob Poeltl 40 minutes a night because it's good for his development. Maybe it's not good for his development to play that many minutes right now. What's good for his development is to be on a team that is willing to build him along patiently and slowly. It's good to be on a team where you have to earn your minutes and there are actual guys competing for your spots. Unlike a team like the Washington Wizards, where I'm pretty sure Bub Carrington and Alex Cassar were penciled in as starters. And maybe that's not a good thing. Maybe that's not a great thing. Maybe it's better to have to work for your keep. And Jacoby knows that if he has a good game, he's going to get 25 minutes and he's going to get to keep his starting spot. And if he has a bad game, he's going to get a quick hook. And that's accountability. You want that. You want that. Long term, you absolutely need that level of accountability and you need honest conversations. And Darko has already shown through his interactions with Scotty, through his interactions with Ochai, through at least 6 stories that I've heard behind the scenes of how well he communicates with these young players about what they need to get better. We're seeing seismic growth from Jamison Battle, who we know Darko is working with every day in practice, working on those finishes, working on his footwork. You have a bunch of guys who are willing to be coached, who have potential, who have the raw athleticism to succeed, and you have a coaching staff that is pouring knowledge into them day after day after day. But Scotty's taking too many threes. Davion's still playing too many minutes. Forest in the trees. Forest in the trees. None of this matters. Scotty taking so many threes right now. Look at the difficulty of the threes. Look at the type of threes and ask yourself, is this a good positive development trend or a negative development trend? That's all I care about. I don't care about the day-to-day. You understand? That's the problem. When I listen to other commentators and other analysts talking about it, they're like, why are the Raptors not going to this play that is yielding 1.26 points per possession, and they keep going to this other thing that's leading to 1.11 points per possession? I don't understand. Well, clearly one number is higher than the other, but neither of those numbers actually matter. That's the point. Scotty Barnes needs to shoot threes at a high volume to be successful in the NBA. He needs to do that to open up his game. And in order to do that, he needs to get comfortable doing that at the NBA level. A lot of people are worried that Scotty Barnes has pretty much stopped working off the ball, that pretty much he won't do anything unless he has the basketball. Good. I'm glad he stopped being, a cutter off the ball. I'm glad he's stopped hustling for offensive rebounds as often as he was, and he's basically only pursuing his own misses. I'm glad that he's not doing those things because that's not what's important right now. It's not, I don't care that he can get 25 points per game, as the role man, as somebody else does, handles. I don't want Scotty to be Jakob Poeltl. I don't want Scotty to be Draymond Green. I'm not trying to turn Scotty Barnes into Clint Capella. Trying to turn Scotty Barnes into Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, trying to turn Scotty Barnes into James Harden, trying to turn Scotty Barnes into LeBron James. And last night and the night before, you're seeing a lot of positive indications of that type of stuff. Is it that type of efficiency yet? No. He had a triple-double last night. Does anyone seem to be talking about that? He led the team in boxes minus last night. Anyone seem to care? Not really. In the loss against Detroit, he had a 20 boxes minus. He had one of his best games ever. All I could hear was the Raptors are 1-8 in games Scotty scores 30. The process here is very simple. You need this guy to become a superstar, and superstars do very specific things. You know what LeBron James doesn't do? LeBron James does not play like Karl Malone. LeBron James plays like he plays closer to. He may look more like Karl Malone, but he certainly plays a lot more like John Stockton. My point is, you need the guy to have the ball in his hands. You need to get him comfortable. Something you realize with players, and I've talked about this before, so I'll apologize for repeating myself a little bit, but something you notice with players who played on very stacked teams is they learn to pick and choose their spots, right? Sometimes people have an issue with certain things Darko does, and I feel like it leads them to the wrong conclusion, right? They'll be like, why is Darko running Scotty Barnes, Chris Boucher, Jonathan Mobo, Jamal Shed, and Davion Mitchell? What kind of bullshit is that, man? It's the stupidest lineup. And you want me probably, if you're that type of person, if you're wondering what sense does that lineup make? Why are we doing that? What kind of bullshit lineup is that? That's not going to work. 3 non-shooters, Chris Boucher and Scotty Barnes. How the fuck is that supposed to work? It's not going to work. But working is only defined by what you're trying to do. If you're trying to win basketball games, it's not going to work. If you're trying to develop Scotty Barnes' offensive assertiveness and trying to give him minimal space so that he has to get really comfortable dealing with really tight gaps to navigate and dealing with all the pre-switching and dealing with 3 defenders collapsing on him, well, then that is perfect. Perfect. I'll share with you something before we get out of here, because I promised this wasn't going to be a super, super long live. Bueno Kitty said it's the weighted best theory. Yes, it is, sir. Yes, it is. I will share with you a story. It's an interesting story. It's from 2017. I am a filmmaker. I had made a bunch of short films, and I decided I was going to make a feature film. And there were a couple producers on board, and they all had some sort of idea about how I was supposed to do this or how I was supposed to get this going. When I showed them the script, they were interested. When I told them how many days I wanted to shoot it in, they were out. They were just out. They did not want to support it. I wanted to shoot a feature film in 7 days. Not because I'm stupid, not because I was trying to make the greatest film in the world, but because I believed that I could, and I believed that it would push me. I also did not do that thing that a lot of filmmakers do, which is stretch my days out to 17 hours a day and tax my cast and crew. I had a hard rule of 8.5 hours is our day. If 8.5 hours goes over, everyone gets paid overtime. That way it's going to hurt, and we're not going to do it. We went over one day by about an hour. So we finished this film. And people were like, well, I hope that it's indoors and in the daytime. I was like, oh, no. It's outdoors and at night. Okay. You're going to shoot something that would take an average person 40 days, and you're going to shoot it outdoors at night. Oh, yeah. And we're going to do it with minimal crew. We're going to have a crew of 5, whereas most producers wanted us to have a crew of 45. And we're going to do it with X amount of money instead of 20X amount of money. Oh, and by the way, we're going to do it in the winter. Oh, and by the way, we're going to have 50 cast and crew, or we're going to have 50 cast members. People were like, yo, I would believe you if you told me you were going to have 2 people in an apartment in the daytime where you had minimal lighting setups, no location changes. Instead, we introduced 50 plus characters, 36 locations, 7 days at night in the winter, very minimal crew, very minimal equipment. At the end of it, it turned into a pretty decent film. And I'm sure y'all will see it at some point. I will definitely start talking about it a lot next year when it starts to make a wide release. It turned out pretty good. People loved it. Someone asked me recently why I did that. And I said, because I wasn't trying to make a good film. I was trying to make a good filmmaker. I knew how much the time restraint and the location restraints and moving around so many parts and doing it in so little time and doing it in the winter with the added complication of weather shifting and being cold and all that stuff, I knew how much that would stress my brain out. I knew how it would force me to think really fast. And the idea came to me when I read the pre-production story of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because they talked about how Texas Chainsaw Massacre was shot across 34 days, And it was this really long, arduous, drawn out production in which, it was super stinky. Like, people didn't get to change clothes for 30 days. Everyone hated it. People wanted to sue the production afterwards. And basically it was because the director and the writer were super disorganized, and the cast and crew were always sitting there waiting for like 6 hours. Talk to any actor who worked with us on that film. They're like, I didn't get to breathe. I was basically on set. I was in wardrobe. I was in makeup. I was on set, and we pretty much rolled the entire time. I wasn't interested in making a masterpiece. I was interested in making a really good filmmaker. And it's funny because I got approached by a really big studio after they saw that film. And this time they were putting us on a boat in BC, and they were going to give us a whole bunch of money and a really cool cast and crew. And I was really excited to work with some of these actors. And they told us that we had a 32-day schedule, 32 days to shoot 86 pages. And I looked at that, and I thought to myself, that's not hard enough. That's too easy. So I asked if we could cut the schedule from 32 days to 22 days. And then they dropped me. They dropped me from the project because they're not interested in what I'm interested in. I'm not interested in easy. I'm interested in hard. You know what's hard? To do lives, unscripted, with no plan. That's hard. You know what's easy? A scripted video where I just read off everything and edit it out, and I can edit out all the and I can take all the reactions, and I can, say, I don't look nice there, let me color grade it, or I don't like how I said that thing, or I don't like my reaction there. Lives are hard. That's why I do them. I want to do things that challenge me. And I think that I appreciate the most about the Raptors is they do things to challenge themselves. They'll go down 7 or 8 just to see if they can come back. They'll have lineups with 2, 3 non-shooters just to see how much better Grady, RJ, Scotty can be managing with less space. They'll put players on the ball who probably are better off the ball. They'll put players off the ball who are much better on the ball. A large part of why the Raptors are struggling in the fourth quarter is because they're dead ass tired. Look at the free throw percentages, look at the short jumpers, look at some of the blown assignments late, and just some of those defensive lapses. Look, the human body is the human body. If you're going to motor yourself all game and you're going to be such a try hard, at some point you're going to collapse and you're going to make a lot of mistakes. Tired people make a lot of mistakes. That's why they tell you don't drive when you are sleepy, because when your brain is tired, when you're really exhausted, that's when you commit those turnovers. You're pushing yourself into the brink of exhaustion and trying to see can you succeed? You're throwing somebody into the deep end with no life preserver and saying, swim, sink or swim, sink or swim. I think it's a really cool thing, man. I think it's a really good philosophy. And I think that it's really hard to understand. Nobody understood why I wanted to do a film in 7 days in the snow. Nobody. I tried to explain it to my girlfriend back then. She didn't get it. I tried to explain it to a producer. They didn't get it. Nobody thought I was going to do it. Everyone told me, good luck. It's not happening. People laughed behind my back. And then we did it. And then they tried to explain to me why it was theoretically possible that I did it. Everything's impossible until it's done. Everything. People said everything's impossible. People, there'll be like I don't know a lot about 400-meter dash, but man, I'll tell you, once things, even the Golden State Warriors playing 12 deep, playing 12 rotation players, that's impossible. That's not done. The Boston Celtics shooting a whole bunch of threes. At first, it looked ugly. Then it resulted in a championship. Now everybody wants to do it. Everybody's a hater. Everybody's a hater when you try to do something new. Everyone's a hater when they can't understand your process. You don't understand what someone's doing. What's the first thing to say is, oh, it's never going to work. That's the typical mentality towards. So what's your mentality when you see the offensive process of the Toronto Raptors and you have this one play that's so clearly going to generate points, RJ, Yak, pick and roll, and you're like, why are they not doing that more? And it's like, because scoring points is not the point here. We know we can do that. We need to do things that we're not comfortable with. RJ playmaking in transition might be something that he's not super comfortable with based on what I saw last night. So he needs to get better at that. Grady being a point of attack defender may be something he's not comfortable with. hiding him is not going to help him. That's something that Darko said early. He said, "You've got nowhere to hide in our defense. We're not running from anything." What else did he say? No skipped steps. Getting comfortable with failure is a very, very important thing. I say something to the fourth quarter gang, which relates to basketball, but can be used as a great metaphor for life. Don't stress your misses, man. Don't stress your misses. There was a reel that I shared on Instagram just last night, which was really cool. And it was a coach explaining how there's a lot of players who really hang their head on misses. So when you miss a shot, you're like, oh, right? You have a visceral, somewhat emotional, sometimes visible reaction to that miss. And then he said, I wish I could have bet money on the fact that you were going to miss your next shot after you were like, oh my God, why? Why are you driving yourself crazy? Miss, move on, miss, move on, miss, move on. You got to go to the next play. Great players do that. Every great player does not stress the misses, does not stress the turnovers. But it's so funny that when a player goes out and shoots 4 for 22, everybody wants to just say, what an inefficient bum. Not realizing that that player actually had to go through a tremendous mental hurdle to keep shooting after he missed. That's the process versus the results. See, there are certain players on this team that are very comfortable with missing. Unfortunately, they're also not that talented, so you don't want them generally taking a ton of shots. Gary Trent Jr. would have taken 40 shots a game if you'd let him. Chris Boucher will take 50 shots if you let him. RJ Barrett will take 60 shots if you let him. These are not the players we're talking about. These are not the players we're concerned about. Jakob Poeltl is an assertive bucket getter. Like, he is not passive at all. But guys like Scotty, guys like Grady, you need them to be more assertive. So you're really happy when Grady takes 26 shots because that's not something that's normal for him. It's not something that's naturally in him. And so when he sees himself doing that, it becomes a sort of self-identification of, I'm a person who took 26 shots in a basketball game, suddenly making it far more normal for him to do so in the future. Also shattering the somewhat perception of, I'm not the type of person who takes 26 shots. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, I don't really care. There's two numbers involved, 12 and 26. If a guy goes 12 for 26, yeah, they shot below 500. If they only generated 24 points off those, 26 attempts, they shot 12 for 26. You might say, well, 24 points on 26 shots is not very efficient, Rob. That's probably really bad offense. Again, are you trying to build a good offense? Or are you trying to build a good offensive player? Are you trying to score buckets? Or are you trying to create a score? These are the things that I think most analysts miss. And these are the things that are rooted in process. And I hope that you can use the Raptors. Like, I have found a tremendous amount of inspiration from watching Masai Ujiri over the years. I would like to believe that my life has gotten exponentially better from understanding how Masai operates, how Tim Lawicki operates, because I spent so much time focused on the Raptors. I often try to draw wider, broader lessons for myself from the team. And this is one of those big lessons that I'm learning from Darko Rajakovic. Don't miss the forest and the trees. Okay, let's take a look at some super chats. Hi, Rob. Can you compare Jacoby to VJ or Dylan? And Cass saying, Rob cooking for real tonight. Tonight for real. Sure, I can definitely do that. I have studied a lot of film on Jakob Poeltl, VJ Edgecombe, and Dylan Harper. So in terms of defense, the best defender here is clearly VJ Edgecombe. I think he might be one of the 5 best defenders I've ever seen at the high school level. Like, VJ Edgecombe is, hello? Uh-oh. Hello? Sorry, my headphone just went out. Sorry to sound like your aunt on a long distance call. Hello? Okay. All right, my bad. Can you compare? Yeah. So the best defender I would say is VJ. Am I frozen again? Am I good? I'm good? Okay, cool. Sorry. Okay. Sorry. It happened on the draft live, so now I'm always paranoid because I didn't see myself frozen, but y'all saw me frozen. It was weird. Okay. So in terms of the super chat that I was answering here, Yeah, I think the best overall player in this bunch is clearly Dylan. I think the best defender is VJ. I could argue that the best athlete is clearly VJ. The best ball handler is Dylan. The best shooter is Jakobi by far. So Jacoby's the best movement shooter, the best pull-up shooter, the best catch and shoot shooter between these three. I don't necessarily know how I would compare Jacoby to Dylan because I think they're different classes of prospects. I think Dylan Harper is just that much better. But there's a world in which I think once because Dylan is so strong, right? Like even at the college level, every level he's ever been on, he's been physically dominant. Whereas Jacoby hasn't really been physically dominating, right? It's not like he's not James Wiseman. He's not 7 feet tall and dunking over everybody. He's not LeBron James, where he's a human freight train. He's doing a lot of this shit off of craft. So I'm just curious to see what happens with Jacoby when he gets stronger, because some of those advantages are going to be different. I like Jacoby's footwork. I like his handle. It's not quite Dylan Harper, but it's good. Like I can imagine him splitting a double team the way Dylan did a couple of days ago for Rutgers. I could imagine him doing that. As a playmaker, clearly Dylan Harper is classes above, but I think Jacoby is the second best playmaker in this group. He's kind of in the middle, right? Like he's not the most exceptional at anything other than shooting. If I had to rank them, I would put it at Dylan, VJ, Jacoby, but I don't think Jacoby's as far away from VJ as like offensively, he's clearly better. Defensively, he's clearly worse. I think VJ Edgecombe just being that type of like explosive vertical athlete, but his measurables are insane relative to VJ. So he has a longer wingspan than VJ Edgecombe. I don't know. This is a really difficult question, but you know what? The very fact, um, I think Dylan is a better shooter. I don't think Dylan is a better shooter at all. No. Jay saying Dylan gives zero effort on defense. It's funny. I don't think he gives zero effort on defense at all. James saying Jacoby looks like a 3-and-D right now. So Jacoby Walter may project as a 3-and-D for a lot of players, and I think that's where a lot of people get lost because the ball skills make it not 3-and-D. Like there's this notion that 3-and-D players are only able to pretty much do this two-dimensional thing, right? Or like this one-dimensional thing on offense and this one-dimensional thing on defense. And I just think that when you get into movement shooting as opposed to standstill catch and shoots, and you start to add in the pull-up stuff, Jacoby is really miscast as a 3-and-D prospect. He's really not KCP. He's not Max Strus. He's not these guys, right? At all. He's not. Like I'm trying to think of 3-and-D. He's not OG Anunoby. He has a lot of wiggle to his game. He has creativity to his game. He has like snake dribbles and little dribble counters and turnarounds, and he gets to the line, and you know what I mean? He playmakes. Like this is a complete basketball player. This is not a role player. Like he may eventually settle into a role player, role, but he has like more dynamic full game. You know what I mean? Like a Malik Monk. He's not quite the explosive scorer, the explosive athlete that Malik is. He's bigger than Malik. He's definitely better on defense than Malik. He's way better defensively than Malik Monk. Malik doesn't play defense. I just think long term, I see him as a top 8 rotation guy for this team going forward. And you have a lot of those guys that are edging into that, guys like Jonathan Mobo, Jamison Battle, where you're like, those look like rotation pieces going down the line, right? So, I mean, when you win a championship, when the Raptors won a championship, what is it that they really had, right? Well, prior to converting DeMar, JV, DeLon, Yak, they had like a team that was like 13 deep. It was really one of the better constructed rosters I've ever seen in my life. And those 13 players were able to be basically shifted. 4 of those 13 players were able to be converted into basically 3 NBA players, right? So the Raptors were able to trade Jakob and DeMar for Danny and Kawhi. So it was a 2-for-2 swap. Older players coming in, younger players going out. And then you had a 2-for-1 swap where it was JV and DeLon for Marc Gasol. So I think that that's the type of thing where you look at it and you're like, you can't really make those types of 2-for-1 deals unless you have an abundance of depth, right? So I think that it's a good problem to have, that the Toronto Raptors will have like 3, 4, 5 rotation players on the bench, Hopefully you can find 2 more in next year's draft, find 1 more in free agency, and now you're 12, 13 deep. That would be great. I'll say it again. Jesus Shuttlesworth Jr. Yeah, Ray Allen would be an interesting comparison. There's a lot to that. I think people naturally try to compare people with similar hairstyles and similar looks. So a lot of people have unfortunately compared him to Reggie Bullock and guys like KCP. Maybe if he looked a little bit different, like Jordan Hawkins got compared to, y'all know that I was super high on Hawk, right? Y'all know that I put Jordan Hawkins as like 5th on my board. I love Jordan Hawkins. I'm really about as high on Jordan Hawkins as I am on Jakob Poeltl. That's how I see him as a prospect. I know some people are just very easily like, moved by other coverage and, they see him as like classes below Grady. I don't think he's classes below Grady at all. I think he's going to be a really good player. Maybe you can argue the maximum upside for Grady is just a titch, a little bit higher, but it's really not that much higher. There's like very similar types of players. They're very much both lottery talents, absolutely. And so, you have some really great building blocks going forward. And I hope that this video has been somewhat informative. I hope this rambling, 35-minute, detour away from statistics and moving more into, the general philosophy of how the Raptors choose to fail and why they're choosing to fail and the fact that they are just way, way more invested in the future than the now should be hopefully a nice reminder to not stress the small stuff, not stress the lineup data, not stress, all that stuff because yeah, and also I hope that people can start getting a little bit more excited about Jakob Poeltl. I feel like there hasn't been enough of a push from the Raptors' own team. I feel like, maybe the media hasn't done enough of a job to push this kid. I don't think it's easy to come back from a shoulder injury the way that he did and just play right away and play major minutes, to go down to the G League, never frown, play admirably, competitively against grown men, then get shifted away from the G League, come to the NBA and start in your first goddamn game and get 14, 11, and 5. I mean, what's that old quote? When people show you who they are, believe them. And what is he showing you right now? He's resilient. Believe him. Talk to you guys later. Thank you so much for making this our most profitable month ever. Thank you for all the super chats. Thank you for all the e-transfers. I appreciate it very, very much. Thank you for all the continuous birthday wishes. Also, I want to address something. 3 different people reached out to me yesterday on Instagram telling me thank you for the tip on Scotty Barnes having a big game against Miami, because I continuously talked about how Scotty was going to have a big game. And one of you even offered me $100 as my stake in your betting. No, thank you. I'm going to make this very, very clear. I'm going to try my best going forward to not say so-and-so is going to have a big game or so-and-so is going to have a bad game, etc. prior to the game. I'm going to struggle. Unfortunately, I didn't think that. And then I thought it. And then I said, don't come at me if your bet doesn't hit or whatever. I don't want any of your profits. I don't want any of your thanks for it, firstly. Secondly, I support your right to bet on sports if you would like. I personally don't want to, and I don't want to promote it on this channel. So that's just where I'm at with it. If you decide to do it, that's cool. I'm going to try my best not to issue any so-and-so is going to have a great game type of warnings anymore. All right. It really has ruined sports. It really has. Okay. It really has in such a major way. Bueno Kitty saying Jacoby slept on. They need to show the clip of him picking up garbage after his team dumped it. That's not Jacoby. That was Jamal Shed. All right, man. Take care, guys. Enjoy. Have a good night.